starting with what looks like a run on the banks of South Korea. Kate.
Hi, Mark. Tens of thousands of South Koreans flooded banks and call centres on Tuesday to cancel credit cards or request new ones. It follows the unprecedented theft of the personal data of at least 20 million people. Claire Murphy has the story.
Attempting to placate growing anger in South Korea, key financial services firms have been eating humble pie as they admit to a massive leak of personal data and pledge to cover any losses. Almost half of the country's 50 million strong population are thought to have been affected.
When it comes to credibility, who am I supposed to trust? What am I supposed to believe? I honestly don't know anymore.
We use credit cards not only in our country, but abroad too. It means our country's reputation has been damaged. The companies need to wake up.
In total, 100 million accounts have been compromised. Prosecutors have announced that a contractor with Korea's credit bureau stole the data of 3 credit firms in 2012 by copying files to a USB device. The authorities say most information was encrypted, but that hasn't stemmed the panic, say experts.
Trust in the financial groups holding personal information has been lost. It's caused millions of people to run to a bank to reissue their credit cards. That's the biggest damage here.
Dozens of top executives have tendered their resignations, while the government is expected to announce special measures aimed at preventing a similar crisis in the future.
The International Monetary Fund has raised its global forecast for growth from 3.6 to 3.7% for the coming year. It's not a huge change, but it may be a sign that the tide is turning. The US forecast was upgraded about 0.2%, while China, the world's second largest economy, is expected to keep powering ahead. The UK saw its forecast raised about half a percentage point to 2.4, higher even than Germany's expected growth. France lagging behind, with the IMF forecasting that its growth will stay under 1%. The IMF's chief economist warned that the recovery will remain weak and uneven, and highlighted the risk of deflation. Now, many of those concerns will also be on the agenda in Davos, where more than 2,500 business leaders, politicians, academics and celebrities are gathering for the World Economic Forum. But what do the locals think about their quiet alpine town being transformed into the center of global economics and politics for a week? Our team on the ground found out.
Davos is a small town, home to just over 11,000 people, but every year it becomes a center of global wealth and power. Locals, they've seen this event grow from just a few hundred participants to more than 2,500 today. The question is what they make of all the fuss.
I think it's a good thing they get together to discuss things. But I think it's a bit expensive.
The roads are snowy and you need to get to the dentist or the doctor or the Migros. It's a hassle, but that's not a bother for me.
The World Economic Forum has put Davos on the map, but there is a price to be paid. A huge security apparatus with 4,000 Swiss troops in and around town means it can sometimes be difficult to navigate. At the same time, the meeting is a huge boon for the local economy.
It's really important for us. During the whole week, it produces 20 million Swiss francs added value, so it's about 16, 18 million euros during the whole week. And of course, all the broadcasts during that week is a good advertise for our destination.
The World Economic Forum says that it wants this year's event to focus less on short-term crisis management and more on longer-term issues. Leaders will be put to the test to make sure that Davos isn't the only winner after this year's meeting.
We'll have a lot more from Davos throughout the week. If you have any questions for Marcus and the rest of the team, you can tweet them with the hashtag F24Davos. Let's take a look at the markets now. Mixed results as Wall Street closed. The Dow Jones down on some disappointing results from blue chip firms, including Verizon and Johnson & Johnson. The Nasdaq up about 0.5% there, the S&P avoiding a third day of losses. Also a pretty muted close in Europe despite some earlier gains as China's central bank announced it had injected funds into the banking system. Here in Paris, the French power and engineering firm Alstom saw its shares plunge almost 14%. And finally, a dry spell for spirits maker Rémy Cointreau, which saw its sales fall a whopping 19% in the last 3 months of 2013. Analysts had expected a dip of closer to 5% compared to the previous year. Cognac sales were particularly hard hit, plummeting as the Chinese government cracked down on luxury goods and ostentatious spending. The French spirits group generates about 40% of its revenue in the Asia-Pacific region. That's all the business news for this edition. Now it's back to you, Mark.
Kate, I think we should make it our duty to try to up cognac sales between us. What do you think?
I'll take your word for it. I think you can do it. You're the man for the job, Mark.
No, you've got to help. You've got to help. You've got to help. Kate, thank you. Just to remind people, if you've got questions for Marcus Carlson on Davos, it's hashtag F24Davos via Twitter. Kate might answer. Marcus certainly will answer. And of course, we've got lots from the World Economic Forum coming up throughout this week here, live from Paris. Time now for Media Watch, which means we are joined by